I'm so excited to be here with you today. I'm Gaia Morissette. I'm the host of Tickle.life podcast. And once a month, we like to do confessions from your hostess. You know, I get to spend all this time with all these guests learning about all their juicy details of their, relationship, their sex lives, all of those things. But I think it's fair is that you get to know what mine is. So let's see, where do I want to start? So today I want to talk about me becoming pansexual and owning and kind of coming out of the closet. So when I was a young girl, and again, that was a really long time ago. I'm 45. Probably from the ages of 5 to about 12, I did a lot of exploration with same sex. It was like it was very innocent, childlike. I show you your mine, you show me yours. Exploration. Finding some porn mags, acting out some of the things that we saw. That was kind of the exploratory experience that was going on in my neighborhood back in the day when that's what, that's kids roamed around free. Anyways, so it was kind of just part of my makeup. So let's fast forward to I'm 14 and I'm starting to become, and I'm having intercourse and I've lost my virginity. All of these things have happened. And, and at this point now I'm only exploring with the opposite sex. And I grew up in a really small town. And as growing up in a small town, there was like one lesbian woman or girl in our class, and I remember how she got bullied and chastised, and I don't even know if she was actually a lesbian. I think she just happened to be, she might have just been curious and looked at another woman while we were in the change room. I mean, I don't even think there was any reason why. We just that was what she got labeled as, and she was tortured. And so I remember in that moment being like, oh, being attracted to the same sex is not safe. It's not okay. Like, there's consequences. Like, it's not okay. So I'm with my first boyfriend, and, he is starting to really encourage me to do all sorts of crazy sexual explorations, which there's some really good stories that I'll share at another show. But anyways, he was all about exploration, like true sexual exploration. And he started in with, it'd be really attractive, for you to be with another woman, and it would be hot. And I remember being like, on one hand, it was like, I really, really wanted that because I've been exploring and thinking and fantasizing about that for a really long time. And on the other hand, I was like, no, that is disgusting. That is wrong. And I couldn't tell him the truth. I couldn't tell him the truth because I was like, if he found out, it's a secret. It has to be a secret. Like, no one can find out. So I'm not in that relationship anymore. And, I move on to, my next boyfriend. And next. And this one is the boyfriend that I actually lost my virginity to. So I'm back with him. All right, this is lots of drama of, teenage drama, dating drama. Anyways, so my very first boyfriend that I lost my virginity to, I had broken up, hung out with this other boy who was encouraged me to explore. We broke up. I went back to the first boyfriend. So I'm now with the first boyfriend again. And, we're like heavy connected, spending a lot of time together. We're almost living together kind of experience. Because I moved out when I was 16. And, I decide, okay, because I was fantasizing about sleeping with a woman. I was fantasizing about kissing a woman. I was like, every woman that I walked past me that I found attractive, I would have to keep it a secret. I was like feeling bad, and I was like, I shouldn't have to keep this a secret. And so I decide that I was going to tell my boyfriend. And this is probably one of the most awful reactions that I have ever had to be on the receiving end of. So I tell him, I'm like, so I've been really fantasizing and thinking about sleeping, what it would be like to be with a woman. And he looked at me with such disgust in his eyes. And I felt my heart drop into my stomach. And I felt like this overwhelming need to vomit. The way that he looked at me, the tone in his voice was like there was nothing worse than being with the same sex, being gay, having anything to do with same sex. And he went into that space. And I remember being like, oh my God, there is something wrong with me, and started to internalize it. Oh my God, I am disgusting. Oh my God, what is wrong with me? So at the time I was going to therapy for other stuff, trauma related stuff. And my therapist was a lesbian. So I thought, oh, well, I'll have a conversation with my therapist. I mean, she's a lesbian. Maybe she can help me sort this out, right? So I go to the therapy and I tell the therapist that I've been fantasizing and thinking about, and that I was attracted to women, and I didn't know what to do with this. And what does this mean? And does this mean I'm a lesbian? What does this mean? And her response wasn't quite as bad as my boyfriend's, but it still wasn't good. Her response was, well, it's because your mother didn't love you. And I remember sitting there, it was like this, again, my heart dropped into my stomach and I felt like I was going to throw up again. I was like, what? I mean, that is true. My mother wasn't capable of expressing love, but what the hell does that have to do with anything? That has nothing to do with me being attracted to women. So I left more confused than I went into my therapy session around my sexual orientation. So I figured that I just needed to keep this quiet, because every time I talked about it, like, bad shit happened. Like, people said some really not nice things, or really crazy things, or things that made no sense. So I was like, okay, I'm going to keep this to myself. And so for the next 2 years of that relationship, I used to just fantasize that, when he would go down on me, that it was a woman that was going down on me. When we would have intercourse, I would fantasize that he was a she, and she was wearing a strap on, and I just kept it to myself, but feeling this shame that there was something wrong with me. Now let's fast forward through a lot of drama. And, I end up, deciding, okay, I'm going to risk again. I was a glutton for punishment. So a couple years go by. I'm pretending that I'm totally into boys and that I'm not attracted to girls on any level whatsoever. And which, by the way, I also was attracted to boys, which made it even more confusing. So it was, I didn't even know. And back then, no one talked about sexual orientation. There was no, bisexuality was not an option. There was no option. You were either gay or you were straight. Like, that was it. So I lean in, and I'm sitting around with a girlfriend of mine, and we were talking about, sex and our sexual lives and our sexual explorations and all this stuff. And I just blurt out, I'm like, have you ever thought about sleeping with a woman? And she looks at me almost like, are you tricking me? She doesn't trust me. And she's like, why? Have you? And I take a deep breath in, and I'm like, yes, I have. I've thought about it a lot. And she's like, me too. And in that moment, I was like, all right, okay, this is the response. This is a good one. This is good. This is good. And this didn't make my heart drop into my stomach like I was going to vomit. This didn't make me feel bad. I was like, okay, all right. So we talked about some of that experience of the journey and the fantasies and things like that. And then we never talked about it again for probably about a year. And one day I was over at her place having a sleepover, and we ended up, exploring together. And that's when I confirmed to me is that I liked girls, but I also liked boys. And that I didn't really want to give up one or the other. I didn't have to choose. So then I went to school. I went to, feminist-based program, and we talked about lesbian theory, feminist theory, and we talked about, heterosexual feminist theory, and that bisexuality was like the only time it was ever mentioned was dropped into these, like, a list of sexual orientations. There's, and that was really it. And so I started while I was in college to become like the bisexual poster girl. Because I was constantly like, what about the bisexuals? And it became a very political thing for me. Now, fast forward to my life, and I now identify as being pansexual. And part of my decision to become, to identify as pansexual is because it gives me lots of possibilities. And for me, my sexual orientation has fluidity, and it has options and possibilities of my attraction to not just the person whose body it is, but who they are as a being. And so for me, I find that pansexuality gives me the most possibilities, because let's be honest, I don't like following any rules. So any kind of label that has as many variables and possibilities in it, I am all over. So if you want to learn more about me, so and get to know me better, you can visit me at succulentliving.com for all your BDSM needs. You can visit me at empressgaia.com. To learn more about me, you can visit, my bio in the show notes. And, don't forget to come and listen to my podcasts, where I talk a lot about not only my journey, but also about, sex relationship topics. It's called My Orgasmic Life. All right. That's it. That's all. Thanks for listening. Mwah. I hope this inspired you in risking and being true to who you are and finding the right people to have those conversations to help you sort through things so that you feel good about who you are. Love you. Bye.